You're live.
Welcome, everybody, to the other side of the glass, the Facebook Live series brought to you by the Just Add Bourbon podcast. My name is Jimmy Don Kurt.
I'm Brad Broaddus.
I'm J.D. Dameron.
And our guest this evening, local Martin County, or fellow Martin County, I should say, local boy Kevin Davis. And Kevin, I'm just going to read this bio real quick. I don't want to screw it up, so I'm going to read it. M. Kevin Davis is a person of strong faith, a devoted husband and father, an entrepreneur, international speaker, trainer, and executive coach whose philosophy is simple. Life is a journey of aligning your dreams, charting your course, and navigating your way to a purpose-filled life. For more than 25 years, Kevin's been inspiring, motivating, and equipping others to live out their dreams. He has devoted himself to developing and strengthening the personal and professional growth of others through speaking engagements, one-on-one leadership building, and most importantly, by serving others. Kevin, thanks for coming on with us.
Thank you for the opportunity. Looking forward to our time together this evening.
Absolutely. So, Kevin, we'll just jump right in. Kind of give us a little background on you. You know, obviously you're from Martin County, just like we are. Grew up here. So, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Born and raised here in Martin County, one of the ones that decided I wanted to make this my forever home. A lot of people that we grew up with decided they wanted to go off and do some other things. And I wanted to figure out how I could, make a living and stay here. I love our community. I love our people. Just excited to be able to, raise my family here. And a lot of times people say there's a lot of things that we don't have. And that's one of the reasons I love where we're at. There's a lot of things we don't have. Just born and raised here, grew up, went to school here, started business early on, been doing entrepreneur spirit from the time I was probably 12 years old when my dad gave me a lawnmower. And I tell people, I read this somewhere, but I tell people all the time, I believe my dad was the guy who started GoFundMe. He gave me a lawnmower and told me to go fund myself. And so that was kind of the beginning of my entrepreneur spirit. And from there, just, learning and trying to do that. Through all that, God called me into the ministry as I was going into the business. So I started, serving others through the local churches and getting opportunities to help, and just kind of grew together with the business and the ministry, just always trying to find ways to inspire, equip, and motivate others to be all that they could be.
Cool. So, Kevin, tell me a little bit about it. Something I've always wondered, I don't know that I've ever asked, is what got you into the quick change business? What kind of inspired you to go into that particular field?
Yeah, I think it was like when we were growing up, some of my buddies, they wanted to be firefighters and some people wanted to be police people. And I just said, I want to change oil. I thought everybody wanted to change oil.
Yeah.
No, honestly, it just happened to be an opportunity. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to start a business. And at the point in time I started an oil change business, I knew anything. I knew how to change my own oil, but it was just an opportunity. And it's kind of like the Carpe Diem thing is you seize the moment. A lot of times people keep waiting for a moment to get ready, but when it arises, the opportunity arises, they're not ready to seize that. And I was just always trying to be ready. And when that opportunity came for that, I said, you know what, let's jump on it and see what could happen. And when I remember when we started with one store, my dad, he was saying, son, you of course, we're family, my dad well. My dad was very conservative. And he was saying, son, you're going to be borrowing this money. Be very careful. You just need to work for somebody. You just need to go to every day, do your job, save your money, take care of your family. You're going to fool around and lose everything you got borrowing this money.
Well, it's funny that you say that because my dad was a lot like that too. And yeah. I mean, I would always have these ideas. I would want, and I would talk to him about it. He's the only person I really had to talk to. So I would talk to him about it. And I would get that same speech is now look, maybe you should just work for somebody and don't worry about borrowing money. I mean, he was real big on that. It's funny that your dad was that way too.
Yeah. And so, when this opportunity arose, and I remember we opened the store number one 26 years ago now. And we opened that first store, and within 2 weeks we decided to build another one. And it was like when I done that, Dad was saying, I can't believe you're doing this again. You need to slow down. And we built 12 stores in 3 years.
Wow.
And by the time we got to about 10 stores, Dad looked at me and said, wow, you're doing pretty good. You going to do some more? So,
I love it. Brad, did you have a question?
Yeah. Kevin, when we're kids, when we're growing up, we have these big hopes and dreams. And even if we don't know exactly what we want to do, we kind of have a vision of what our life is going to look like in 5, 10, 15 years down the road. And nobody, when they're 15, says, well, when I grow up, I want to wake up Monday morning cursing my alarm clock. I want to go to a job where I feel undervalued. I want to have a mediocre marriage, and I want to live paycheck to paycheck. Nobody has ever said that. Yet a large majority of the population ends up exactly right there. How does that happen?
Yeah. Well, Brad, that's a very good question. And I think that happens a lot of times. A lot of times we fall into the rut, or we fall into just thinking that we can't do more. And you and I have experienced this. When I look back and how many times have people told me that I couldn't do something? I mean, I remember when we started this oil change business, people were saying, people won't pay you to change their oil. They do it themselves. When we started, it was $19.99. It was $20 oil changes. You didn't make any money at $20 oil change. People saying, there's no way you can make a living. So it's like we hear some people tell you can be anything you want to be. But then on the other hand, you hear people saying, well, you might, but you better not. Oh, you might not. This won't work or that won't work. And I think that we just fall into that. So one of the things that I've always looked at is, I'm a dreamer. And I believe that it all starts with a dream. One of my favorite scriptures is, where there is no vision, the people perish. And I think that the first thing that we have to do is we have to get a vision or a picture. I love what you just said, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Where do you want to be? And you need to paint that picture. Some people do vision boards. Some people paint these things. They cut out all this stuff and they put it on and say, this is the house I'd like to have. This is what I'd like for this to look like. This is where I want to go. And you know what? I don't think that's a bad thing. I didn't do it physically on a board, but in my mind, I saw myself wanting to have businesses. I saw myself wanting to be the family man. I saw myself wanting to have, investing in my, my wife and my kids and all that. And as I began to see those things, now a lot along that way, I fell a lot of times and I've come up short. But once you get that vision and once you can see that vision, then the next thing that you have to really do is then you have to see your potential. We're all, none of us were created by mistake. None of us are an accident. We were all created. I mean, we were created with a purpose. We were created with a calling on our life, with talents and abilities to do great things. And sometimes those things get pushed down. But the moment that we begin to see, one of the things that one of my key things that I speak a lot about is the flea trainer. Are y'all familiar with the flea trainer?
No.
Have y'all seen that or heard that? So when you think about a flea, you and I would think about a flea. We think about a flea as a nuisance. We think about it as something. I mean, you're all scratching right now thinking, oh my goodness. Now, that's what we think about with a flea. We think about, oh, it's a nuisance. It's small. It aggravates you. But if you study a little bit about a flea, they can accelerate like 50 times faster than a space shuttle. They can jump 150 times without taking a break. They can jump as 150 times their own height. In our relation, they could jump to the height of the Empire State Building. But if you were to take fleas and you were to put them into a jar, and you put those fleas into that jar, and of course, if we do that, they would jump out. But if we put a lid on that jar, what happens is those fleas begin to jump, and then they hit that lid. And as they hit that lid, they're kind of smart. So they say, you know what, this is not really good. I'm going to stop just shy of this lid. Oh, it doesn't hurt as bad now. Even though they could really outjump all of that, 3 days later, you remove that lid. Those fleas never go any higher than the lid that was set upon them. Their height is set for their life. And if they have any offspring, their offspring will never jump any higher than they were. And I think that's exactly what happens sometimes to us. Even though they're full of potential and they're full of abilities and they can do great things, they've allowed that lid to keep them. Sometimes we allow those lids to keep us from being what we can be. And the lid sometimes is fear. Fear. I'm afraid to take a chance to do that. What if it doesn't work? What if it fails? You know what fear is? Fear is false evidence appearing real. It's doubt, thinking, well, I can't do it and I can't do this. We allow those lids. And what I encourage people to do is, hey, lift that lid, break that jar, jump as high as you were created to jump, use the potential and abilities inside of you. And all of a sudden, when you begin to see that, when you begin to see yourself and you begin to see the potential that you're in, all of a sudden now you can dream big. You can really dream big. The moment you start dreaming big, the next thing you have to do is you have to believe it. If you don't believe it, it'll never happen. A lot of times people get dreams and then they'll tell you your dream. I love it. People say, oh man, I believe I really want to do this. And then they end it like this. But I don't think I could ever do that. You know what? You never will. The moment that you say, but I can't, you've got to see that dream, and then you got to believe I can accomplish it. But it doesn't end there. A lot of times people say, well, I'm just going to see it and I really believe it. I'm going to sit back now and it's just going to happen. You're a daydreamer. It'll never happen. Then you got to put the work to it. When you're willing to see it, when you're willing to believe it, and then you're willing to put forth the effort and you're willing to put forth the work, then you can accomplish and do great things. Obstacles are going to come. Challenges are going to come. But those challenges and obstacles, when you really see it and you really believe it and you realize your potential, you can overcome those obstacles and do some really great things.
So I got a question. What you just said reminds me of, we talked to Heather Hubbard a couple weeks ago, who was also a motivational speaker. She talked about the quote from Henry Ford, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. Mm-hmm. So what made you decide to get into the motivational field? You had a successful business, you had a great, this beautiful family, everything was going great, but you decided that wasn't enough. So what was it that pulled you to want to help others?
I think really, JD, what happened was, and honestly, I'm the guy that would have took a 0 instead of getting in front of the class to give a speech. People don't believe that. People who know me well know that I'm more of an introvert than I'm an extrovert. I'm more, when I get on a stage, I'm nervous, I'm scared, I really don't want to do it. God called me into the ministry, and I'm sitting there thinking, how in the world am I going to get up? I don't know, I can't do this. And all of a sudden, when I got up and just accept that, and when I saw people that were struggling, people that were hurting, people that needed help, and I could begin to share a message of hope, a message of encouragement, and all of a sudden I could see that twinkle in their eye, or I could see that glimmer of hope, and I could see somebody start doing something. It just done something inside of me that said, I got to do more of this. I got to do more of this. And so it probably really begun. It started probably from me, preaching. And then all of a sudden, I've been very fortunate, very blessed to be able to run this business. And the next thing you know, we're in our industry and people are asking me to get up on a stage and speak about how we've done what we've done. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm just a country boy from the hills of Kentucky. Then, I don't really know how to tell you how I've done it. And then they got me on the stage and they said, just get up and tell us what you do. And most of the time they say, that boy's got that right way of talking. He don't talk like he's from around here. So that got that going. And then I just started sharing the story. You know what I saw? I saw that same glimmer of hope. I saw people that was looking for something that was struggling. And I was able to share a message. And what I tell a lot of people is, I believe in you. I believe in you. If nobody else believes in you, I believe in you. I believe that you can do great things. So if you get to doubting yourself and you get to thinking you can't, you call me and I'll tell you, I believe in you. Get your head up and let's do it. Let's make this happen. So I think it's just seeing that glimmer of hope in people, seeing people that's wanting something. I get the most fulfillment out of seeing other people accomplish great things. And I know I look back and see if I've done what I've done, anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. If you've got enough drive and enough ability and you're willing to fall down. Somebody asked me the other day, I was doing a webinar for a church up in Boston. They had a men's group that got me on there and they asked me a question. They said, how important was failure to your success? I said, it was the biggest part of my success because out of the 2 things I told you I've done well, I failed at about 12. So I think it's just that seeing that glimmer of hope and just wanting to help other people see their potential. And if I can share a message of hope and encouragement, and I can call somebody to believe in themselves and do something great, that just gives me a lot of fulfillment.
Kevin, do you think that kind of that perception of failure gets kind of ingrained at us young? Because if you think about when you're in school, okay, like if you go out today and if you attempt 10 new businesses, and if 5 or 6 of those succeed, you're probably going to be in pretty good shape, right?
Exactly.
But if you turn that paper in and you miss 4 out of 10, then you're a failure, right? And I think from school that we get that in our mind. Okay, if you miss once, you've messed up. If you've missed 2 or 3 times, then you're a failure. Do you think there's anything to that with how we come up and the perception? Because myself, I grew up playing baseball. So, hey, if you fail 7 out of 10 times, that'll put you in the Hall of Fame if you can do that over a career, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I think we do. I think I think our score system and some of the things that we do, it goes back to what I'm telling on this mentality of making people feel like, I wasn't the greatest student in school. School wasn't important to me, but now I don't let my kids do that. If my kids get less than an A, they're in trouble, so you got to do better. But to me, that wasn't there. So I do think a lot of times, I think it's important that we encourage people to try things, because you're going to fall. I mean, what happens when our kids, if you've been blessed and you've got kids, when they first start walking, they fall a whole lot more than they take steps, don't they? And what do? We pick them right back up and say, try it again, try it again. But all of a sudden, when they get up to about 15, 16, and 17, and they start falling down, we start saying, well, I never thought you'd make it to start with. I knew you wouldn't do it. I knew you would mess up. I knew this. I mean, how does it change so quick? How does it go from get back up, we can do it, to I didn't think you was going to be able to do it anyhow? I think a lot of times we got to change that message, and we got to give that message of hope and encouragement. And honestly, we got to let people know that we believe in them, that we do believe. And when people fail, you know what? When people fail, honestly, I've been very blessed that I've been surrounded by great people. And I think it was Jim Rohn that said this. Jim Rohn said that you become the average of the 5 people that you spend your most time with. And I've always said this. I mean, sometimes even with my children, and even with that, sometimes when things would go wrong, I could just hold my hand up and do this right here, and they would know, hey, Dad's saying, hey, And so I have chose to surround myself with people, and I've never been too much. So what would happen with me, if I didn't know how to do something, I would always find somebody who knew how to do it well. I mean, I would find, when I started pastoring, my goodness, God called me in the ministry. I didn't go to seminary. I didn't do, I was lucky if I could quote anything, but I said, okay, I'm getting ready to pastor a church here now. I've never pastored. I found a couple of very successful, great pastors, and I started calling them up. Hey, can I take you to lunch? Hey, and then I started saying, would you help me? The same thing with business. I've been very fortunate to surround myself with some very good business people. And throughout, this time, that I would reach out and say, hey, would you help? And those are the people that have done it, they failed, and they know that you can do it, that'll keep encouraging you. A lot of times the people who have failed and just give up, they're the ones that continually tell you, you can't do it either.
JD.
So, I mean, it sounds like me and you relate a lot, man. Like, I'm a positive thinker. Like, I don't want to be around negative people. Like, I don't want to be around negative energy and stuff that just brings me down. But sometimes I do, like, get frustrated. I see so much potential in somebody that they don't see in themselves. And does that frustrate you? Did you ever feel that way towards somebody? Like, it's like, man, you're so smart. You got so much ability. You're surrounded by you got a great support system. You should be doing some great things. Why are you stuck doing this?
Absolutely. It does, because when you see that talent and ability, and I know I'm not the most talented person. I'm not. A lot of people say, man, you must be very smart, or you must be very talented. I'm probably just average. And I look at some of these people who got so much talent and they're not doing anything with it. I'm saying, oh my goodness, I'd love to have that. I mean, if I had that and my desire and my energy, what could I do? And it does. So when I see that sometimes, but I've come to the realization that you can only help people that want to be helped. So when you see that potential in them, I think it's very important that you point that out to them. And you might be the only person, JD, that's told that. And I know you do a great job investing in our children here in the county. You do a great job with the football and doing that stuff. And you know what our kids need to hear? They need to hear continually, oh, I see that potential in you. Oh, wow, I've never seen anybody that, you've got that. And even though they may not believe it right now, if we keep telling them that, and a lot of times they may just waste it. But let's keep telling them that and believing in them and trying to get them to try. And success breeds success. If you can get somebody a quick win, if you can get them a quick win, all of a sudden, I like to win. You like to win. If we can get a quick win, man, winning feels good. Let's get another one. Let's get another one. And we start building that up. But I do get frustrated sometimes, because you see some people who's got it and you just pour this into them. They just kind of look at you like, nah, I really don't want to do that.
So, Kevin, I was ask you, and I've wanted to ask you for some time, how important is it? Because I'm one of these people that has checklist for his checklist. Okay, I have done this forever. I don't know why I started. I just did. Where I would sit down and I would say, okay, I want to be here in 5 years, here in 10 years, and I will every year at the same time reassess my year and kind of set new goals for myself, short-term and long-term goals for myself. How important is that for someone in business or just in life to set goals like that for themselves?
In my opinion, that is very important. Goal setting is one of the keys to success. To be a goal setter. Now, I'm a list as well. I mean, man, that blood runs thick. I mean,
Yeah, right.
where I have checklists for my checklist. I mean, it's kind of like, it's funny. I'm sitting there looking at the list on my desk and say, yeah, I got list for list. But goal setting is the key. A goal set, once you set a goal, you're halfway there. So when you start setting those goals, I do a webinar and a seminar on goal setting and achievement, on how do you set that goal? What are the steps to setting a goal and achieving that goal? And once again, once you get somebody to learn that, if you can teach somebody goal setting and they will execute it and they will get that win, they will find that success. And then all of a sudden they will breed more success and more success. So to me, I'm very goal oriented. I mean, when I first started out, honestly, when I started with the first store and I said, well, that's good. My next goal was 10. My next goal was 25. My goal now is 50. I would like to have 50. Now, you know what? If I don't have 50, that's okay. But I'm going to work toward 50. I'm going to continue to prepare myself. I want to continue to do everything that I can, that when those opportunities afford themselves, I'm ready to seize that moment. But you know what? If they don't seize that, I'll just say, you know what? Maybe that wasn't meant to be. But all this preparation has got me prepared for this opportunity that comes up. So I think it's just, goal setting is very important. And if you can learn to set some goals, and we got to set goals that are realistic, that are achievable. A lot of times, I would love to lose some weight. I could immediately say, I want to lose 30 pounds. 30 pounds is huge, and it'd take me a long time to do that. And I would try and lose a few, and I get upset and give up because I'm too far. Okay, I want to lose 30, but what if I said, you know what? This week I want to lose 2 pounds. I just want to lose 2 pounds this week. And more than likely, I can lose 2 pounds in this week. And then at the end of the week, I've lost that 2 pounds, and I'm saying, whoa, I set this goal and I achieved this goal. I want to lose 2 next week. And in 15 weeks, I've lost 30 pounds, if I continue to set those goals and do that. So the same thing with whether you're in business or whether you're doing something with your family or whether you're doing something in your church or whatever it is you're doing at work, setting those goals, setting those small steps, because, how do we get, there's an exercise that I do in one of the trainings, and it's basically teaching people, from getting from here to here. You don't have to do that in one big step. If I say I want to go from here to here, it doesn't matter if it takes me 15 steps to get here. I'd love to go right here. That's not realistic. So what if I got to take 50? Just take those small steps until you get there.
Yeah, I know I talk to my staff a lot about small victories. Let's get these small victories, and those small victory upon small victory upon small victory, and we'll ultimately get where we want to go. Mm-hmm. And that's something I really try to, stress to the people that I work with. The other thing, and I actually asked Heather Hubbard this a couple of weeks ago when we had her on, but I was interested to know how you feel about this networking. And, in a business, I don't like to network. All right. Like, I'm one of those people. And again, like you said, the blood kind of runs thick. I can run my mouth all day, but when I get home, I'm an introvert. I want to be by myself. I just want to hang out with Amy and the girls and all that. But how important in your mind is networking, getting out and getting to know the right people and those things?
I think it goes back to the motive. If you're just networking to gain and you're trying to do that, I think you can have some success, but to me, it's about building true relationships. When you start building true relationships, and Zig Ziglar said this, when you help enough other people in life get what they want, you will get what you want. So to me, networking is building relationships. And it goes back to those 5 people. If you're going to become the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself, you need to choose those people wisely that you're spending the most of your time with. It's like, if you're a golfer, I'm not a golfer, but Mallory's golfing and I'm excited. We went and fitted her up for golf clubs for UPike last night. And so we're excited about that. But what I noticed with Mallory, when Mallory first started, she wasn't very good, and she played with the girls that scored the very high scores. And she didn't get a lot better. And then all of a sudden she started getting paired with those that shot better scores, and she got better. So you want to surround yourself with, a lot of times, John Maxwell says, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I don't. I want to surround myself with people that are smarter than me to make me better. Same with playing golf. I watched her in some tournaments. A couple of times in the tournaments, even after she started shooting really good scores, she would get paired up sometimes with some beginners that were shooting, over 100. And you know what her game was for those games? She was up 10, 15 strokes sometimes, because it just pulls you down. It pulls you down. So, I think networking, one of the rules that I've lived by for years, and I used to preach a message on this, but it's a life principle. I feel like every one of us need to have 3 different categories of people in our life. I think that each one of us, we need to have somebody in our life that is mentoring us, somebody who's pouring into us, somebody who's already achieved what we want to achieve, somebody who's already been where we want to go, somebody who's already conquered that mountain. And we need them to pour into us and say, hey, I believe in you. Here's the steps you need to take. You need to do this. And I also think that while we're on that journey, we need to have somebody that's walking alongside of us. We need to have somebody that's a peer, somebody who's in the same level we are, but somebody who's going to be our accountability partner, somebody who's going to say, Kevin, your head's getting too big, buddy. You're thinking more of yourself than you really are. Bring it down. I mean, some people won't tell you that. I need to hear that every now and then. I need to hear that sometimes, that, hey, you're not as good as you think you are. You need to bring that down. Or I love it. Now, I've got an accountability group that I've been with for quite a while. And, one of the things that we do with each other all the time, I mean, the questions is we ask a lot of each other, hey, are you being the husband you should be right now? How you been treating Pauletta this last few weeks? Have you been short? How you doing with your kids? Are you spending that? How you doing these things? So that's that person that's walking alongside of us, that's asking us those tough questions that we know that cares for us, that we know wants the best for us. So now if somebody off the street comes up and says that to me, I'm probably going to get upset. But if somebody who really cares about me and I know wants me to be the best that I can be, and they ask me the question, hey, you been being short with Pauletta here the last little bit? And I kind of, she call you? But I'm glad that I've got those. So that's that person that's going. And then we need to have that person that we're mentoring, that person that we're pouring into. We don't want to become the Dead Sea. We don't want to become all this stuff flowing inside of us and we just hoard it all up, because if we do that, we'll die. It's got to flow through us to somebody else. And then that's where the joy comes. I talk about the purpose-filled life. Life is a journey of aligning your dreams. That goes back to getting the vision. That goes back to really seeing your potential, getting the vision of where, and you know what? Everybody's dream. Your dream doesn't have to be my dream. Your dream may be to work the job you've got every single day, go to work on time, get home on time, do that. That's perfectly fine if that's your dream. Live your dream. It's your life. Make the most out of it. Your dream may be to acquire some kind of wealth. It might be to acquire some kind of notoriety. That's okay. What is your dream? Align that dream. All of a sudden, the charting your course is the list making. It's the goal setting. It's okay. Okay, now that I see where I want to be, I tell people all the time, if you were to go on a map, and I do a little exercise with people. I got this little thing. This is new. You'll see it here first. It's getting ready to come out. It's called the Purpose-Filled Life Radar. And it's a little assessment that goes through 10 categories of life that we all need to focus on to be who we want to be. And it's got some questions on it that we find out, exactly where we're at in each one of those things. And then once we find out where we're at, because how many of you all have used my phone here? Now, used to, if I were to use my phone to go somewhere, and all of a sudden I say, I want to go to Lexington, Kentucky. Now it's automatic, but what my phone would used to always pop up would say this. It would say, is it okay if we identify your current location? Y'all remember when it used to do that?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times when I'm talking to people and I'm doing coaching, one of the things that I'll ask them is, I'll say, so where is it that you want to be? Where do you really want to go? Where do you really, what is your dream? What is your vision? Now, if there was no way you could fail, if money was no object, where do you want to be? What do you want to do? And then they tell you that. So they just basically just said, this is where I want to go. I want to go to Lexington, Kentucky. They say, this is where I want to go. And then I dig down deep and I say, okay, I can help you get to where you want to go. But before we can ever get there, I got to ask you, is it okay if I ask you some questions to find out where you're at right now? And then usually we draw that down on a piece of paper. Here's where you want to go. Here's where you're at. Now we've got a gap. There's a gap between where you're at and where you want to go. I can help you close that gap if you want to close the gap. But closing that gap all depends on you. What are you willing to invest to close that gap? Are you willing to get up a half an hour earlier every morning? Are you willing to read some new books? Are you willing to listen to some podcasts? Are you willing to put in some extra time? Are you willing to do more exercise? What are you willing to do? And the more that you're willing to do and the more consistent, the quicker you can close that gap to be where you want to be. So I think when we get those right people in our life with that networking, When we got somebody who's pouring into us, when we got somebody that's walking alongside of us, and we got someone that we're pouring into, it helps keep us on that journey.
So I need to find 3 new people in my life.
Well, JD,
Three
I was thinking the
categories.
same.
Exact same thing.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm gonna have to cut JD completely out here. And apparently, Amy's been talking to Kevin because she is constantly assessing what I'm doing. Yeah, Brad, did you have a question?
Yeah, Kevin, I'm just kind of curious. I know you talked about how you got started as an entrepreneur, but how you got started really into this world, because I know, like for me, I just happened to, I was in sales and was trying to find a way to motivate my team years ago. And I stumbled upon 2 books at the same time. One was Zig Ziglar, See You at the Top. And the other one was Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And reading those books together, just kind of sent me on a path to want to understand human nature and really the power of our brain. Mm-hmm. And I was just wondering, was there a specific book or lecture or something that kind of flipped that switch for you and got you on this journey?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked that, because back when I first, I just had gotten married. So, I was married, God had called me into the ministry. I was trying to build this business, so all this stuff was happening, and I was trying to pastor a church, and I didn't know how to pastor a church. I didn't know how to do all this stuff. And John Maxwell at that time, I don't know if you're familiar with John Maxwell. He's wrote hundreds of books, and 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership is one of my favorite. But he used to have, John was a pastor. He started out as a pastor who just continued to grow through the pastorate and become one of the probably one of the greatest business leaders and leadership coaches ever. But he had I think it was called the Enjoy Club, and it was a cassette tape. You remember what the cassette tape was? Yes, that was a few years ago. But every month I subscribed to his Enjoy Club, and every month I got an envelope with a cassette tape in it. And he was talking about, leadership, mostly church basis. But when it comes to leadership, it doesn't matter. Leadership is relationships. Leadership is influence. It doesn't matter. And everybody's a leader. Anybody who's got influence is a leader. All people they've got influence under, whether you're at a business, at a church, or at a home, or whatever. And I would listen to his cassette tapes. I would listen to those things. And at that time, I didn't stay away from home. We were building stores and doing stuff in Lexington, Mount Sterling. I would leave the house at 4:30 in the morning to be on the job at 7. I would leave that job at probably 4 to 5 in the evening and drive home, because Michael was just born. Pauletta was there. I didn't want to stay in a hotel. I wanted to be home every night. And so I didn't care. But I used those hours in the morning and the hours in the evening to listen to cassette tapes. And I had his, and I also had, I believe it was Zig Ziglar's Born to Win seminar series. It was a big thing. It opened up and had like 10, 20 cassette tapes in it. And I would listen to John Maxwell and Zig Ziglar, and exactly what you said. It would just fuel this stuff inside of me. It was like just somebody pouring gasoline on a fire. I would listen to those things, and literally, I really believe that if you'd have given me a water pistol and told me to charge hell and put it out, I believe I could have put it out. I was fired up. And I'm sitting there thinking, this is good. I like this. And that I wanted, so the really cool thing is, over life, as opportunities afforded, I'm John Maxwell certified speaker, trainer, and coach. I think it's 2011. I had the opportunity to go to John Maxwell's house in Florida. And this is one of the craziest things ever. But I meet John Maxwell. We had a mutual friend, and I'm at his house. And I asked him a question. He said, come in here. He takes me into his private study. We sit down, he sits him down at his desk and opens up his drawers and says, here's how I file. Here's how I keep this. This is how I write my books. And I'm sitting here thinking, 20 years ago or whatever it was, I was listening to your cassette tape, and now I'm sitting here listening to you tell me these things. And then just 2 years ago, I got an email from something about Zig Ziglar. And I responded to that email, and I ended up calling out in Dallas, and I talked to a lady, and I said, so I'm Maxwell certified. Anybody got anything to do with Maxwell? And the next thing you know, hey, one of our head people now is a Maxwell person, so they're going to call you. And we had a phone call. The next thing you know, I'm on a phone call with Zig Ziglar's son, Tom. And Tom and I are having conversations, and I'm now certified as a Ziegler speaker, trainer, and coach as well. I'm spending time with Tom Ziegler, on, pretty regular basis. He's actually coming here to Eastern Kentucky with me. We were supposed to do it in March, and the COVID-19 postponed it. We're going to do it in September now over here at Prestonsburg in Mountain Arts. So probably two of my key motivational speakers, book writers that done it for me would have been John Maxwell and Zig Ziglar. And the really cool thing is now they're a big part of my life still today, and I'm able to help them share the message to other people and help that.
Oh, JD, do you have a question?
Yeah. So, I mean, we talk about these hopes and dreams, and, we all have them. So do you have, like, some wide-ranging advice, or is the advice personal, like to the guy who's working 40 hours a week, or the lady who's the stay-at-home mother who's struggling to put food on the table? Like, that's not the life they chose. That's just the life that kind of happened to them. Mm-hmm. Those things happen. So, like, what would be, if you could give them one piece of advice, what would that advice be? Like, if they had dreams they haven't reached yet.
Yeah, I think that don't lose that dream. Don't let your current situation or your current circumstance rob you from that dream. It's never too late. A lot of times people, I think, fall into that rut that it's too late. Too late for me. I can't do it. It's too late for me. I can never get past this. Now, is it going to be difficult? It's absolutely going to be difficult. How many of us have been there? I experienced it. Paulina and I got married. We didn't make a ton of money. We charged up a bunch of stuff on credit cards because we lived bigger than what we should have lived. We went out to eat too much. We bought vehicles we really couldn't afford, and we run up credit card debt, and we got dug into a hole. And we're sitting here thinking, oh my goodness, how are we ever going to get out of that? Now, it was hard. I ain't gonna lie to you. And we had to do some sacrificing to get out of it. But I could have fell into that rut and saying, well, this is the life we're going to have to live. We're never going to get out of it. But instead, we started saying, you know what? We got to figure out how to get out of this. This is no fun. It's no fun, paying the minimum payment every month and keeping it charged up to the max to where we can't get to here and we can't do this. I got myself there. I don't have anybody to blame but myself. The choices I made put me there. And I didn't see those choices at that time. I just thought, well, I'm working every day. I deserve this. I'm working this every day. I should have this. And then, so it's just those small steps. It's those baby steps. And so the first thing I would say is don't give up. Don't give up. And you got to be persistent. It goes back to being persistent because it's a struggle. It's really a struggle. So if you were in one of my keynotes that I do, I talk about the butterfly, and you may have heard this, but if you and I were to go out and we see a caterpillar crawling around, that caterpillar was not created to be a caterpillar. It was created to be a really beautiful butterfly that's just amazing. The caterpillar in most eyes doesn't look too great. Butterflies are beautiful, though. When you see those, their wings, their colors, and all that stuff. But I read a story, and I think Zig told this story about a young boy who went out and found this caterpillar, and he said, Mom, can I keep it? Can I keep this caterpillar? And she said, well, sure. And so he got him a jar, and he put it in a jar. He put him a little twig in there, and he put him some leaves in there. And all of a sudden, that caterpillar started getting mopey, and it started hanging on the end of it. And he started saying, what's wrong, Mom? And his mom said, son, that caterpillar is getting ready to have a metamorphosis. It's getting ready to change into really what it was created to be. Really, what's going to happen? And all of a sudden it began to form that cocoon, and it began to seal itself up in that. And the little boy watched at it, and she says, just wait till it comes out. Wait till it comes out. You're going to see something like you've never seen before. The little boy starts watching it, and all of a sudden it starts breaking out of this cocoon. And the little boy was probably related to me because he's very impatient and wanted it to happen sooner, so he says, oh, it's not coming out quick enough. I'm going to get some scissors and I'm going to help cut it out. And all of a sudden that butterfly fell to the bottom of the cage it was in, and it was a swollen body and shriveled up wings, and it was just kind of wandering around. And he went to his mom and he said, Mom, what happened here? What's wrong? And she said, son, you caused that. What do you mean I caused that? Well, what happens is when that caterpillar, that butterfly, was struggling to get out, it was the struggle that was pushing the fluid from its body into its wings to give it the strength to be able to fly. When you took the struggle away from it, you took the ability for it to get the strength to be what it needs to be. So what we need to look at is the struggle is what gives us the strength to be who we're created to be. But sometimes we give up during the struggle, and then we wander around never being what we could have been. So I would say never give up. Don't give up. Keep fighting that good fight. Just be persistent, be consistent, and just keep on keeping on, and get some small wins. A lot of people, it's this get rich quick stuff and this instant stuff. My goodness, I watch this stuff, and you buy this exercise machine and you'll look like this. That's the reason my credit card was so maxed out. I bought all of them. I thought, oh, I want to do that. It never worked. But you know what? It would have worked if I worked. If I would have used it the way that they used it, and I would have ate the way they ate, I would have done that too. So just keep taking those steps. Keep working, and don't give up. Just keep your head high and keep doing those, and you will overcome and get those small wins. It may be the small win. It might just be, it may be if you got a desire to go to college, you quit college, maybe it's taking that one class a semester. You may say, it'll take me 20 years to get through it. Who cares? Who cares? Just take one at a time. You'll get there.
So, Kevin, something I wanted to talk about too was, you mentioned it in the beginning. You're one of the people that chose to stay here when a lot of people leave. And a lot of my friends that I went to school with left. I wanted to come back here mainly because I'm a mama's boy. If I'm being totally honest, Kay Kerr's got a pretty good handle on me. So, but I felt like I could make it here. If I worked, I could make it. What would you tell, to the young people that are probably watching this? I'm looking, there's several, folks watching it, some younger folks in our community. What would you say to them about, you don't have to leave here, in my opinion, to make a living or to have a good life? What would you say to that?
Absolutely. And even so more today, so now today we get this, the mining industry is declining, and we see all these things that are happening, and people say, well, you got to leave here. But what we got to look at is technology. Technology allows us, look what we're doing right here now. We're
Right.
all four in different spaces, and we are communicating to an audience that is just, I've been booking stages, and this year I would have already been traveling. I've probably been gone 10, 12 times in this COVID-19 thing. I've had to cancel all my trips. And a lot of times I'm sitting there thinking, okay, now how are we going to make this happen? But what I'm doing now? I'm doing more stuff like this. I'm doing webinars. I'm doing virtual trainings, and I'm doing those things. So I would think that anybody here, granted, would it be easier to do it somewhere else? Maybe it could, maybe it couldn't. But if you really want to, it goes back to, do you really want it? And if you really want to accomplish it, I believe that you can. It's just like, I encourage my kids. Micah, which is my oldest daughter, she wanted to live here. She chose to get a teaching degree so she could come back here, and that was the job that she could get, and she could live here. Mallory, I don't know whether she's going to stay or not, but she's chosen to go into optometry. Through that field, she could stay here and do well in that field if she wants to stay here. So I think that it's just, choosing that field. But with technology today, and with the ability to be able to work remotely, the ability to do so many things, I really think that we can, I tell people all the time, when I started, we have 20 of these locations now. At one time we had 25, we currently have 20, and they're scattered for Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, and Virginia. And honestly, I could have chose to live in any one of those places that I wanted to live. I could have done the same thing I'm doing, but I chose to do it right here. And we do a lot of stuff virtually. We do a lot of stuff remotely, so, I think you just got to look for those opportunities. You got to find out, what is it that you really love? What is it that you want? And I'll speak just a minute on inspiration and motivation. And so a lot of times people get confused on inspiration and motivation. People say I'm inspired, or they'll say I'm motivated, and sometimes I think they think they're the same. But JD, when you ask me, what is it that causes me to want to do what I do? What made me get into it? And I really think what happens is inspiration is something that is inside of us. This is what I think about it.
Sure.
Inspiration is something that is inside of us. It is something that we got a passion for. It's something that we love. It's something that, it's something we would do for free. Even if we didn't get paid, we would do it. That's something that we just love to do. And when you see that inspiration in someone, you just got to fan that. You just fan that flame. And when you start fanning a flame, it just starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I go and listen to sometimes these motivational speakers. I could listen. JD, you could probably give me a speech on football, and you could probably be so pumped up and fired up and excited about it. You'd have me thinking that I could run through a line and get a touchdown and all that stuff. And you'd have me so inspired, and I'd really think that I could do it until the first person hit me. And you know what would happen right then?
Life would stay in.
I would sit there and thinking, I was inspired, but that really wasn't what I wanted to do. He really made me, that wasn't inside of me. I just thought that was what's inside of me. It really wasn't what's inside of me, but it made it sound so good, you made me want to do it. But what I think true inspiration is if I'd done that and I really knew that's what I was supposed to do, and I'm sitting there laying on the ground and they've knocked the wind out of me and you're looking down at me and I'm looking at you and say, what's that all about? But if it's really inside of me, you're going to say, get up. You can do this. You can be stronger. That's motivation. Motivation is the external force that keeps you doing what's on the inside of you. So when you're truly inspired to do something, you're going to get hit. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to get the wind knocked out of you. But if you're truly inspired to do it, then somebody comes along and starts motivating you. Somebody starts saying, get up and do it again. Try it one more time. Do this, do that. And then all of a sudden, then you're running in for the touchdown because the inspiration is fanning that flame and you got somebody motivating you. So I just encourage people to find out what that is inside of you. What is it that lights your fire? What is it that excites you? My son, Dennison, he loves math. I mean, where did that come from? I mean, I don't know where that come from. It had to come from his mom, but I'm sitting here thinking, one day we were talking, I was getting all pumped up and excited about something. I was building something at the barn or doing something. And he looked up at me and he said, Dad, you know how you get so excited about building this and doing that? He said, that's how I get with a math problem. And I said, son, you're just weird. but I'm glad he is. That's what inspires him. That's what he loves, to find a solution to a problem. So what I need to do is, I know that's what it is. I need to fan that flame with him. I need to keep finding problems and helping him find solutions so he can find out what can he do. So with that inside of him, what can he do right here in Martin County? What can he do if he wants to stay here? So that's what we got to do. We got to find people, these young people, we got to invest in them. We got to tell them that we believe in them. We got to find out what it is that inspires them, what it is that they truly love. And we got to start fanning the flame. And then all of a sudden, when they get knocked down, they get the breath knocked out of them, we need to come back and pick them up and say, I believe in you. Let's do it again. We need to walk alongside of them.
JD, do you have a question?
Well, just to follow up what you're saying, I kind of feel like it's almost the motivation and the inspiration will bring the consistency. Is that am I off on that? Or because that's kind of what we had to preach to our football team for, we're always taking some butt whoopings for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Is that, guys, we can do this. We've seen you do it. What we need is the consistency. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, you got to get them to, once again, it goes back, you got to get them to see themselves as a winner. You got to see yourself there before you ever get there. And then you got to get them to believe in it by seeing their potential. And then when the obstacles come and when those things happen, I remember, I tell this story a lot in one of my keynotes too. My sister, Lil, that passed away with breast cancer, several years back. My goodness, she was a rock, and, she was such a great inspiration in my life. And she wore a little lapel pin all the time of a bumblebee. And do you guys realize that it's scientifically and aerodynamically impossible for a bumblebee to fly? Did you know that? Scientifically and aerodynamically impossible. The body is too big and too heavy and the wings are too small. And my sister used to tell me all the time, she said, Kevin, do you realize that? But do you know what happens? The bumblebee still flies. Why does it still fly? Because nobody told it couldn't. It consistently flapped those wings until all of a sudden, through that consistency, it just took off and flies. So even though it might be scientifically and it might be all these other things impossible, it goes back to, we've got to consistently, consistency. You got to keep that consistency going. Keep flapping those wings. And all of a sudden, when you take flight and everybody's saying, whoa, that's not possible. I don't know if it's possible or not, but I'm flying. I'm still doing it. And so that stuck in me. And, Zig Ziglar told that story and somebody said, you get that from Zig? I said, no, I never got that from Zig. I got that from my sister. I remember calling my other sister, Linda, after one of my speeches, and I asked her, I said, do you think we could find that pen that Lil wore? You think Steve or Lauren or Dennis or one of them has it? Because even though is a lady's pen and stuff, I said, you know what, if I could find it, I'd wear that when I go speak, because I love to tell the story about that and do that. And she says, Lil didn't tell you that. Mom told you that. And I said, Mom never told me that. Lil told me that. And she said, Mom always told us that when we were little. I guess that's the reason where Lil learned it from, you know. But that just goes back to, like you said, we just got to be consistently doing it. And I think the inconsistency sometimes is what's caused people to fall in that rut and just can't get out. You know, when you get in the rut, you and I, we've been out in the hills four-wheeling, we've been on side by sides, and you get some of these strip jobs, you get down in that rut. It's easy to stay in the rut. I mean, you can just ride that. But when you try to get out of that rut, you got to put a lot of effort to get out of it. And usually when you get out of it, all of a sudden you jerk out and you're losing some control. And it's a lot easier to just follow the rut. But folks, we're not built to stay in the rut. We weren't created to ride the rut. We were created to soar. I tell our people all the time that when they come here for training and motivation, this is Eagle School. We were created to soar. What does an eagle do when it gets dark and cloudy? They soar above that to where the sun's always shining.
Cool. So, Kevin, there's a story that you tell, I think came from your mom, called Bloom Where You're Planted. Could you go through that? Because we're getting close on time, and I want to make sure we get that one in.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, so if you knew my mom, she had a green thumb. She could plant anything and make it grow. I mean, it would be amazing. You go by her house and she would have flowers just run everything. And more than likely, if you went by, she would be out in her yard working. She'd be dressed up like she's going out and have her full makeup on out working in the yard, because you never know who's going to drive by. You know, somebody might stop, you know, so, but I remember at a young age, Mom would always tell me that you can bloom where you're planted. And I know that's a popular saying, but you know, that was something that I first learned it from my mom. I'm actually writing a book right now. I've just about got it ready. I'm hoping to have it done by the time Tom and I do our event. It's just a small book, but it's the title of it is Thrive, Bloom Where You're Planted. And it come from my mom, because what really amazed me is when I see a seed, you know what I see? A seed. My mom would see a seed and she would see the flower. She never saw the seed. She saw what it could be. And then that vision, once again, goes back to that vision, because she saw what it could be. She planted it in the ground. She watered it. You know what would happen? Sometimes the deer would come. They would nip them off. Sometimes they'd pull them out of the ground. Sometimes the bugs would get them. She would put stuff out. She would do all the things to nurture it and take care of it. And it can bloom where it's planted. It takes work. It takes effort. It takes consistency. It takes persistence. And she kind of taught me that's the same thing with life, that we can bloom where we're planted. Wherever we're at, we can bloom exactly where we're planted if we will believe in ourselves, if we will be put forth the effort, put forth the work. Nothing's easy. This stuff about you can get it quick and it just happens easy. My dad always said nothing worth having is going to come easy, son. You're going to have to work hard for it. You know, so that bloom where you're planted, that's kind of become one of my mottos and my themes. And I done it, my first keynote, I done it for a group up in New York. I got an opportunity to go speak at a 40th anniversary event. A friend of mine that had it up there had about 8 companies there, and he asked me to come. And I actually wrote that keynote when I was on the plane going up there. I had another one I was going to do. And for some reason, I kept thinking about my mom, and I just started writing out this presentation and putting together. I had Aaron here in the office. From the plane, I was texting him saying, can you build me a slide with this? Can you build? So we was actually building this when we got there. And that's kind of what the inspiration come from, though, was blooming where we're planted. I mean, each one of us here right now on this call, we're blooming where we're planted. I mean, some of us been transplanted, but we're blooming where we're planted. I mean, you know, that's the cool thing, is we can bloom where we're planted.
No, I love that. And it's one of the early things that I heard you talk about, I think. And it spoke to me because of wanting to come back here and live and make it here in a county where a lot of people leave. And so it's always, and I wanted to make sure we got that one in, because that is one of my favorites. Kevin, we're pretty much, go ahead.
Jimmy, I was going to say too, that about coming back here. And, you know, one of the things that I think people need to see is we need to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. There's all kinds of people that want to talk about the problems. They want to talk about what's going wrong and what people aren't doing right. You know, what we need to do is we need to find solutions and saying, you know, here, what can I do to make a difference? What can I do? And you know what? If every one of us done one thing, we need to become the change that we want to see in others. Why do we wait for somebody else to do it? Why do we wait for somebody else to pick up trash beside the road? Or why do we wait for somebody else to do something? We need to be the change that we want to see in others, that we want. And I appreciate what you've done. I appreciate the way you stepped up and you're serving, you're doing these things. What an awesome job. But that's what I want to encourage people to do is I want to be here. I want to contribute. I want to give back. I can tell you a lot of stuff that's wrong, and I can tell you, why people should do things different. But what good does that do? I need to be the person that says, what can I do to help make it better? And that's what I want to encourage people to do. That's how we bloom where we're planted. That's how we thrive. That's how we become what we were created to be, is adding value to others, helping enough other people get what they want in life, and then we'll end up getting what we want.
Awesome. I love that so much. I really do. And I appreciate you saying it. So we're pretty much at our hour, guys. Anything else you guys want to hit Kevin up with?
Yeah, I got to ask, man. Are you going to have Mike and marry Cody for real? This really going to happen? It's froze up over there.
Luke,
you don't have to answer that, man.
Hey, I'm getting a great son-in-law right there. I'm telling you what, I'm getting the opportunity now to help him bloom where he's planted. He's getting ready to get planted right beside of me, and I'm going to help him bloom.
There you go.
There you go. You'll water him fine.
Yeah, I'm going to fertilize him and do a little hoeing.
I love it. So Kevin, tell people that are watching where they can find your stuff. Like where, I know you've got the website, social media. Go ahead and kind of tell us where you're at.
Awesome. Yeah. So just mkevindavis.com. mkevindavis.com will take you to my website. It's still somewhat under construction, but you'll find a lot of information there. I'm new to all the social media and stuff. I'm doing better. I'm learning it. Tom and his group's been helping me do more. So I'm on Kevin Davis on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, on LinkedIn as Kevin Davis. And for the event that we've got coming up in September here in Prestonsburg, Kentucky, it's going to be an amazing full-day event. This event is for anybody. It's for anybody who wants to do more, be more, accomplish more, whether you're working for somebody, whether you're a leader, or whether you want to be a leader. That's going to be a full-day event. If you go to raisethelid.com, and that comes from the Fleas story, and the title of the whole event is Raise the Lid. We want to help people raise the lid. We want to help people build winning relationships, build their best you, discover how to set goals, how to make choices to win. So raisethelid.com is a great place to go get more information on that. And I think you're running a little promo right now on the social media for liking and sharing and doing some stuff. Somebody's going to win a $199 seat for that event this September.
That's right. And for those watching, share this podcast. No, JD, you can't win. No, so the people watching, share this interview, tag 3 people, and like it, and we will select someone who will get a free seat at this event that Kevin's talking about over at the MAC in Prestonsburg. And I would think you're getting a little taste of what you would get here. And JD, we may all have to go. Get fired up.
Come on, we're going to raffle it off. We're not going to pick somebody.
We're going to raffle it. Highest bidder, JD says.
You'd be better picking a winner. Yeah.
All right, Kevin, man, I honestly can't thank you enough. I've really enjoyed this. I think you're right. I feel like I could run outside and, go build something, or I'm ready to start, my next office. I don't know. I'm ready to go. So we appreciate you coming on. And for those of you that are watching, of course, you can catch us on Podbean. We record our normal podcast every Sunday and put it out on Sunday evenings. Now, this Sunday will be a little different. We have Representative Philip Wheeler will be on with us, and we're going to interview him. What's that? Senator. I'm sorry. Senator Philip Wheeler. He'll be on Sunday with us at 7. We're going to do the podcast live here on Facebook as well at 7 o'clock. But of course, you can catch us on Podbean. That's where we launch our podcast from. iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. You'll be able to watch this interview there on YouTube. And of course, on the social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And as we always end the show, from myself, from JD, from Brad, and today, Kevin, no matter how bad your week's been, no matter how bad your day's going, if you just add bourbon, it always gets a little bit better. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you guys.